Hey there, we're Geek Pithany, and we're bringing you the special Star Wars edition of our show. As we all know, we're just mere days away from the premiere of Episode 7.
That's right. When you mention Episode 7 to Star Wars fans right now, you realize things have reached a fever pitch. There are worlds of contemplation and excitement for this movie with the unknowns that we're facing. But, on the flip side, there are still folks that feel burned by what happened with the prequels, and they're approaching Episode 7 with a sense of wariness.
For those of you that have anything negative to say about Episode 7, we find your lack of faith disturbing.
So, for all you pessimistic Padmes out there, we have some really good reasons why Episode 7 is going to be awesome. Alright, there's a lot of people out there that are pretty certain that Episode 7 is going to be terrible. And their certainty is based off of a lot of fear and speculation. And if they have an open mind, we have a lot of facts we want to bring up about why Episode 7 is actually going to be quite good. Because you have to ask yourself the following question. If I was to make Episode 7, what would I put into it? And now, I want you to have that in your head as we talk about everything that's going into Episode 7, because it is almost perfectly in line with everyone's dream idea of how to make that movie. In order to enjoy a movie, you're going to have good characters. And along those lines, Mike?
Mm-hmm. So this is something where I think Episode 7 is coming out far and away ahead of where the prequel trilogies were, is the introduction of our new characters. The new, well, there's more than a trio really, but we have Finn, our ex-stormtrooper. We have Rey.
Possible ex-stormtrooper.
Possible. All right. We'll contend to that later. We have Rey, our desert scavenger with a mysterious past. We have Poe Dameron, the hotshot resistance pilot, almost a rebellion. Get my terms straight, sheesh. Not to mention the BB-8 and how the internet has fallen in love with this little droid after the initial skepticism.
Well, after they proved that he was a real droid that they built.
Yes.
And we're going to get to
which
that.
is damned impressive.
They had him at D23, and it's a real thing. It's a thing that works.
It's a real droid. They
It's
built
so
it.
cool.
But to my point, I think that this core of characters that they've introduced as our new characters are just, it's solid. There's a lot of intrigue behind these characters, who they are, why they're doing what they're doing. But the glimpses of what we've seen of them in the trailers so far and the insights we've gained from interviews with the actors playing them and the people working on the movie have unveiled little snippets of their history here and there that have just really shown that these are determined characters.
These characters also have a blank slate. They can go anywhere. The problem with the prequels is you knew what was going to happen to all those characters. You knew that some were going to disappear, you knew that some were going to become villains, and you kind of knew the character arc. So it was just a matter of you being on board that train. But now there's that sense of mystery, like who these characters are, where they're going. That is what a story is about. It's about answering that mystery. And I think that with the characters alone, we have that now. And it's something to look forward to.
Right, and there's some real mythicism to this too, because with the way what we have seen and the way we understand Episode 7 to be set up right now is the great battles that we saw in Episodes 1 through 6. They've almost, especially the Jedi-related things, are almost folklore at this point. Some people don't believe it's happened. Something is very clearly different from the expanded universe where Luke founded a Jedi temple and brought about the renaissance of the Jedi Knights.
Again...
It certainly appears to be this way.
Well, yeah,
why else would Han be telling everybody that it's all true?
But the point is...
If there's a possibility that may have happened, but it's not the case right now.
Well, yes, it may have happened and something terrible may have happened.
Exactly.
Yeah. And this kind of brings us to our next point. Mystery is, in any movie, is fantastic. That's what makes a good movie, is setting up a question and then answering it somewhere in that plot.
Oh, exactly.
And to that end, they have given us so little of this plot, so little of what to actually, not just to expect, but what we know. We're all grasping at straws here. We've all tried to reach our own conclusions. So one of our points, Sean,
is the whole mystery of the unknown we're getting with Episode 7. I mean, you've seen the posters, you've seen the pictures, you've seen the trailers. Really, how much do you know about what's going to happen with Episode 7? With the prequels, yeah, it was new. We hadn't seen it before, but we went in knowing what the end game was.
Yeah.
So when Palpatine essentially reorganized the Galactic Senate in Episode 1 and got in charge, yeah, we might not have seen that coming, but it made sense. It's like, oh yeah, that has to happen. Episode 7, we don't have any of that. it's all been vague. As going back to your guys' point, not just with the characters and their backgrounds, but
The plot.
Absolutely.
Oh, look at what do we actually know? What plot points do we actually know?
Nothing.
We know that somebody has retrieved Darth Vader's helmet from Endor.
That's it.
We know that somebody has retrieved Anakin Skywalker's original lightsaber. We know that. We know that there's going to be a Millennium Falcon. We know there's going to be a Han Solo, Princess Leia, and Chewbacca.
And the new characters we just talked about.
And the new characters we talked about. That's all we know.
Yeah.
They haven't given us anything else.
And for a franchise as big as Star Wars to only leak that information is spectacular.
Absolutely.
And not only do we think that it's awesome that they're keeping their mouths shut, because the number one complaint on the internet right now about trailers is it reveals too much about the movie.
Yes.
We want to see the movie going in.
Right.
We really don't. So this is the perfect thing the internet's been asking for. Leave it a mystery.
All the information that we have officially received has been very, very meticulously and carefully curated. We are being fed and directed to understand what we understand so that we're caught unawares when we finally get to see this come December.
And more than that, it's not just the sense of the unknown going into the movie, it's actually crafted in a way to kind of quell the fears of what is new about the movie. Because before, in the original prequels, everyone really didn't like the new shininess of it. They didn't like the polished CG, the green screen stuff. A lot of people initially had a very big knee-jerk reaction to Jar Jar Binks. Big surprise, that knee-jerk reaction is still there. And basically everything that was new was just so jarring from what Star Wars was, it was hard to accept. So what do we see in these trailers and teasers the first time? We see everything new. We see a black stormtrooper. We see BB-8. We see Kylo Ren. We see with the lightsaber that has little things that come out of it. And immediately, what was the reaction of the internet? It's all awful.
Minds.
Yeah, they lost their minds. A droid can't roll. Oh, this lightsaber looks dumb. Oh, a black stormtrooper. Thanks, George Lucas. Now, obviously, I'm using that heavy-handedly, but the point I'm trying to make is that they show you these things that we're all going to hate in the movie first. Why? Because that gives you time to get over it.
Right. They wanted to show things that people were going to get angry about. But for people who... Personally, let's put it this way. I loved the stupid crossguard from the start. I thought it was awesome. It looked cool. And I think that they were hoping that people were going to catch some of those reactions.
My biggest concern about the crossguard is just the practicality of it. How are you going to hurt yourself using your own lightsaber?
Let's put it this way. Everyone's concern about that lightsaber is hit or miss. There's no justification for it. You either like it or you don't. But the problem is, it's not the problem. The solution is show it to us early, and we have that now.
Exactly.
We know going into this movie what that lightsaber is going to look like, so we're not going to make fun of it afterwards and deconstruct the whole movie based off of one thing we didn't like.
Exactly, that's stupid.
They put a lot of thought into the trailers and teasers alone. And if they put that much thought into the teasers and trailers, they put even more into the actual finished piece. And that's what I think another one of our points is that the creative team involved.
The caliber of said creative team.
Yeah, the
caliber was the word I was looking for.
Yeah, the caliber. It's not just how much they've done, it's what they've done in the past.
Right.
And I know that the director, J.J. Abrams, is gonna meet with a lot of good and a lot of bad.
There's polarization there.
There's polarization there for sure, so I'm going to talk about him last. But let's talk about Lawrence Kasdan. Now, he's one of the primary screenwriters of this. And he worked on the original Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. So you want an original trilogy-esque story? Hire the guy that wrote the original trilogy. And they did. It takes a lot of balls. Not to mention that he didn't just write those movies. He went on to write some Oscar-nominated stuff like The Bodyguard. The guy has good writing chops and he knows what he's doing. In addition, they also have an original John Williams score. Every time a Star Wars movie is made, he writes something for it that's iconic. Yeah. One of the biggest things that you can take away from the prequels that is universally loved, Duel of the Fates. That freaking song is played a million freaking times and everyone likes it. It's one of the few things that people can agree on. So I can imagine that he will do something similar to this new trilogy. Now, past those two, there's also some producers involved. Kathleen Kennedy, she worked in the original trilogy. She also worked on a ton of iconic 80s movies. When it comes to producing a movie that has practical effects versus just a wall of CG, she's the one. That's why they're filming in Morocco and Tunisia. And
Kathleen Kennedy has had a hand in every major motion picture.
Yeah, basically.
I can think of.
Yeah, and so if you want anyone to handle a movie to give it a realistic atmosphere, it's her. And they have her. And so we have the perfect screenwriter who has a great track record with Star Wars. We have a great composer with a great track record with Star Wars. We have a great producer with a great track record with Star Wars. And so that leaves the director. Okay, so here's the biggest point that a lot of people have problems with. J.J. Abrams is a good director. Yes, he has a lot of lens flares, but that doesn't mean he sucks at his job. Just because you have lens flares doesn't mean your entire history of filmmaking is terrible.
Plus, he already made a Star Wars movie anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Star Trek.
Like, that's the point I want to make. Those Star Trek movies, everyone has problems with them mainly because they're not Star Trek movies. And they're not. If you pull out all the characters, if you pull out Kirk and Spock and you replace them with Obi-Wan and Luke, you'll see that those are Star Wars movies at their heart. They're full of action and set pieces and space battles. That's Star Wars, not Star Trek. So if you're worried about a Star Trek movie and how terrible that was in Abrams' hands, well, imagine it as a Star Wars movie just without lens flares. Even in the trailer that was just released for Star Wars, you see that shot where Finn is turning around with all the other troopers moving around him. You go from this close-up of his reaction, and the camera pans around, and you see all the battlefield in front of you, and it's one continuous shot. And being able to do that in camera is not only Spielberg-esque, it's what this movie needs.
Yep. I want the fanfare to hit, and I want to see the scroll. The first thing that I want to see when the camera pans down is just a big lens flare. So
Just it is a big middle finger to everyone that's like dabbing. Yeah. So
Let him get it out of his system earlier.
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely.
So anyway, if you really want to discount J.J. Abrams' abilities based off of the idea that he uses too many lens flares, you might want to look into his ability a bit more. Look how he moves the camera in Star Trek. Look how he moves the camera in Super 8. And all of his other movies. He knows how to visually tell a story arguably better than any modern director, save a few.
That was
And-
one. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, and with his success for Star Trek, I think he actually proves that he can do a Star Wars movie. In my opinion, outside of Spielberg himself, he is the next best alternative.
Now, you were making the points that that the Star Trek movies Abrams did were a lot like Star Wars movies. Maybe that's why I like them so much. And this is coming from someone who isn't a Star Trek fan.
There you go.
Wars versus Trek. I was always on the side of Wars. But I enjoy J.J. Abrams' Star Trek.
Maybe because it was Star Wars.
Exactly.
Maybe.
He made Star Trek watchable.
Yeah.
But, you know, as you said,
Hey,
he has done...
we love you, Trekkies. I'm one of them. And these guys, what they're saying is hearsay. But let's continue. That's a conversation for
3-1. Didn't like Star Trek till seeing the Abrams movie.
These guys
Sorry.
obviously all have bad taste.
Feel free
Continue.
to hate in the comments, but
to build on your point, Richard, J.J. Abrams knows how to direct. Not just movies, but TV, too.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone... Well, they may not forget, but Lost in the beginning was such a gripping show.
Mm-hmm.
It now kind
How
of...
about Alias?
Alias,
Yeah,
indeed.
fantastic show. Yeah.
So J.J. Abrams knows how to craft a story together, and that's why.
Visually.
And that's visually too, and that's one of the reasons I'm not worried about Episode 7.
Exactly. So
They're giving us everything that it is that we've always wanted. I mean, okay, if you were to go back 10 years and ask Harrison Ford, someone did. I think it was like Leno or Letterman. And they asked him if he would come back to play Indiana Jones. He said, in a New York minute. In that same interview, they asked him what it would take to get him to come back and play Han Solo. And he said definitively that he was not interested in revisiting that role. Something happened in between then and now. And some people might argue that it was a truck full of Disney money. Here's a battleship full of Disney money.
Did that change your opinion? Yes, it will. Hello, Terminator 5.
Exactly. But here's the thing. He's in it. They're giving us Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher. They're giving us Mark Hamill. They're giving us our Millennium Falcon. They're giving us our John Williams score. And they're giving us our X-Wings and our TIE Fighters. And they're hearkening back to all of the things that we loved before. And they're bringing them into the now. They're making them modern. They're moving forward.
and that's the important part, I think. Again, we touched on this a little earlier, is that balance. This isn't going to be just a straight-up nostalgia fest. They obliterated the expanded universe so that they could tell new and interesting stories.
Exactly. And not just that, all of you that are wondering, oh no, do we have a good product? You've been told that you have a good product. Are you paying attention? Because people that have participated in making the product, in the creation of the product, and people that have seen portions of the finished product are telling you that it's good.
And that's the next point, is that the people that have actually seen this movie have universally, critically said that it's good.
We're talking about people who have film cred, pop culture cred, geek cred.
Simon Pegg.
Simon Pegg.
Kevin Smith.
Simon Pegg is notoriously critical of anything sci-fi because he's a hardcore nerd. Like
Absolutely.
Us. And he was even though he's in it, he was vocal about how terrible Into Darkness was for certain reasons, and that's why he's writing the third one. But that's a different point. But he basically said about this movie that
it's a solid movie, and that you have nothing to worry about. Harrison Ford, dressed as a giant hot dog, went on late night.
That's right.
To tell Jimmy Kimmel that stop worrying. This is a solid movie. This is a man that didn't want to be in the movie.
Yeah. And yes, he was paid to be in it. We realize that. We realize money talks. But if you talk to the most hardcore of hardcore nerds, money doesn't influence them. And let's be honest, Harrison Ford doesn't care about money anymore. No. And it shows. That's why he stopped acting. He hasn't been in too many movies unless you pay him a ton or he feels strongly about the project. This one, he obviously feels strongly about because he wouldn't be in it otherwise and he wouldn't go on to talk about it. He'd do his normal shtick, which is be in it, Ender's Game, and then not talk about it ever because I'm sure he abides by the philosophy that if you have nothing good to say, don't say anything at all.
Exactly.
And in this one, for Star Wars, he has nothing but good things to say.
Kevin Smith, the king of nerds. Your
arguably the king of
your
nerds.
unofficial leader.
Yes.
Has said that this thing is golden.
And we understand your apprehension like we just described. Like we know a lot of people outside of just hating whatever's new. People just don't like their childhood rustled, and it's understandable. You have these nostalgic feelings attached to certain properties and franchises, and you don't want people to mess it up. But you have to give some people a chance, especially when it's the right collection of people doing this. And not just people, but the right collection of everything, and that's what we're trying to say.
And as Richard said, we already knew basically what was going to happen we knew there was going to be a final duel between Obi-Wan and Anakin. Mm-hmm. We knew it was going to take place in a volcano somewhere. We already knew that stuff. And when it didn't happen the way we wanted it to in our imaginations, we got pissy about it.
Yeah, but now
there's no expectation here.
Yeah, no expectation, blank slate. There's nothing to get pissy about. The only thing to get pissy about is your fear that it's not going to live up to any kind of high expectations. But if you don't go into the movie with high expectations, the movie's going to do one of two things. It's going to exceed them and be like, oh, great, or it's not. And you'll be like, okay. The idea is, don't be such a pessimist. You will have a better time if you give this movie a chance.
And not just that, something else. Years ago, I was in my office. I was working still at the high school. Sean calls me up and tells me to get on the internet, and Disney had just bought Marvel. Disney had just bought Marvel Comics. And fanboys everywhere, their brains exploded and they spewed out crap over the internet.
I think my phrase was, this has got to be like peanut butter and chocolate.
Peanut butter and chocolate. And it was. I was like, amazing. But so many people got really upset. And they were just prophesying doom and damnation for Marvel and Disney. And then, of course, that happened, right? All the Marvel movies have been god-awful, right? Oh, wait, no. They've all been so amazing that they were able to give you a talking tree and a talking raccoon with a machine gun and make it the best one they did. So it's like, shut up. Disney spent how many billions of dollars to buy... They didn't spend $1 trillion to buy Star Wars and then wreck it.
Yeah.
Don't be stupid.
That's the other thing we wanted to talk about, is that it's in the right hands. Like, if it was any other franchise, any other studio, if it was any other film studio handling this, there would be some room for worry. But the way Disney has handled the Marvel franchise, and that's the way they're handling the Star Wars franchise, is they give complete freedom to the creatives involved, and that's what's needed. If you do that, you get these Marvel movies. And granted, there's some naysayers out there that really don't like some of the Marvel movies, and that's okay. But you can't argue against their box office success. Every single one of them has been very successful.
And you can't argue with their approach Disney has been taking with Marvel.
Which is very...
And that's been...
Yeah. It's creative license.
All your guys.
Yeah, creative license, hands off, and people are delivering on it. Like the Russo brothers. Like, I was excited for Winter Soldier, and I had some expectations. I did not expect that movie, though. That movie was incredible. Arguably almost better than Avengers, and the Avengers movie is something I've been wanting to see since I was a kid. Not to mention Guardians of the Galaxy. Everyone went in expecting it.
Scared.
Everyone was scared. I mean, I was at Comic-Con when they announced it, and the audience reaction, if you look it up, is hilarious, because they're like, here's our next giant franchise! And this is on the heels of announcing, like, Thor 2 and Iron Man 3. They're on the heels of all that. They're like, we're announcing Guardians of the Galaxy! And the reaction of the audience was, Yeah. What's that?
What is
like
that?
no one on yeah, and that
And the
shows
people
you.
that knew what it was, we were like, oh no, that's the one that's not the raccoon.
Yeah, they're like, oh no, Groot, how are you gonna do that? So I mean,
Very,
that
very well, apparently.
yeah, that movie had negative hype, which might have
Exactly.
helped. Which might have helped make it better because it was a fantastic movie, standalone. Now, when we went into this, we said, imagine your version of the new Star Wars movie. What is it that would be the perfect Star Wars movie? And I think we pretty much outlined everything that
Absolutely.
anyone would want. An original writer, a good established director.
Yep.
We have the music, we have the producer, we have characters that are interesting and have a bunch of places to go. We have mystery, we don't know what to expect, which is
Yep.
why the original Star Wars trilogy was so exciting. And then above it all, we have people that have seen it and said it's good, and we have the right team handling. We have the right company handling it. Disney has
Exactly.
done a wonderful job with Marvel properties, and it's really hard to argue and say that they won't do good with Lucas when all they've done is just cash in the Marvel cash cow.
Absolutely. I mean, here's the checklist.
Yeah.
I want a grizzled Han Solo.
Done.
Check.
Yeah.
I want Wookiees. Check. I want a bearded Luke Skywalker. Check.
That looks like Obi-Wan.
Exactly. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, and the point we're making here is that we want you in the comments, put your ideal Star Wars movie and compare it to what we just laid out. Look how similar it is. And it's hard to argue with what we have. Don't dismiss it outright just because it's a new Star Wars. Actually take some time to look at what's going into it before you actually think it's going to be garbage.
And I'm going to say one more time, too, that I think one of the biggest triumphs of this movie is going to be is they understand that they know what we want, but at the same time, they recognize that we don't know what we want either. Because it's very easy to say your checklist was all the stuff from the original trilogy, but we need to see new things, too. Otherwise, it's rehashing, retreading.
Yeah.
The series never
And
grows.
definitely, yeah.
Point being, I think fun is the right word, right? This movie is going to be a hell of a lot of fun. Regardless of what your expectations are, go watch it, relish in the fact that
Everyone's going to see it, even the
Yeah.
naysayers, let's be honest. But when
you
we're
can,
talking...
you can bring your iPod that has a 20th Century Fox fanfare, and you can play it for yourself.
I got to admit, that's the one thing I'm going to miss.
That's true. But honestly, I don't mind the Disney slate in front of it.
Oh, of
I'll
course.
take it any day.
Of course.
In this case, I definitely would take it.
I'd laugh if
want
they
the
bought the
castle
rights to that
motif.
fanfare from Fox.
It's like, screw you guys. You don't get to use this anymore.
That
It's
would be
ours.
Mouse
hilarious.
shaped spotlight, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks everybody for watching. We hope you enjoyed this Star Wars discussion. Please leave comments down there. Talk about what your ideal Star Wars movie was so we can go back and forth and see whether we agree or not.
Yeah, let's continue the discussion in the comments. If you actually have some things you'd want to see in the Star Wars that we didn't talk about, by all means, mention it.
And if if you enjoyed it, give us a like, give us a share, give us a subscribe, guys. Help,
Even if you didn't like it.
Absolutely.
You subscribe to see us talk about more
we,
garbage that you
we
hate.
appreciate the feedback. And with
Absolutely.
that, we're Geek Epiphany signing off.
Thanks for
We are
watching.
signing off. I didn't get to say anything.
Yeah, Ben just couldn't wait.
If we're wrong, tune into our next video. We're going to review this thing once it comes out. And maybe we're wrong. And then you can come make horrible comments to us.
Let's put some stakes at this, right? If we are wrong,
About the
tell
quality?
us about the quality.
Okay.
Give us some dares in the comments that we will do. And if we are absolutely wrong and this movie is garbage, we will eat our own hats. We will eat durian.
I like mine. No.
Yeah, well, we'll do something ludicrous.
I
Take
will
some.
show up dressed as Slave Leia.
Oh, God, no.
If you really want our eyes to bleed, we will censor it out for all those at home, but we will suffer.